Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Living Dvnly podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to helping you rediscover your true self through refined and intentional living. I'm your host, Amber Janae, and as always, I'm so excited to have you all along on this journey with me. I just want to take a moment and apologize if I don't really sound like myself. Thanks to my toddler, this past week has been a forceful slowdown for me because I have not been 100% health wise. And sometimes these babies come with germs, and it is unfortunate because typically the parents are the ones who are impacted when they are toting around these germs carelessly, but it's nothing that we can do about it. We just got to roll with the punches and roll through it. So that is where I am. And yes, please forgive me if I do not sound like myself this week. So let me start this episode with a story. A few months ago, I abruptly stopped recording content for YouTube. And it was interesting because I stopped doing it. And right after, I was just growing my following. I grew my following to almost 100 followers in less than 3 weeks. It was insane, which is really big for me. Might not seem big to people who already have a large following, but it was really big to me. And when I took this abrupt halt from YouTube, I didn't really explain to my followers why I did it. I just did it. But the truth behind it had a lot to do with a moment of projection from a former friend. And that projection essentially made me feel like I was stepping into this space and I was doing too much and was taking up space on a platform that didn't belong to me, or I didn't have any business of returning to this space to build my community. For those of you who don't know, years and years and years ago, I had a YouTube channel. And then I stopped doing YouTube. And also, when I had a digital magazine, I also had a podcast previously. So none of this is new to me. It's just me returning to what I once knew. But in this process, when I stopped, recording content for a few months recently, what I didn't stop to think about is that maybe, just maybe, this person couldn't handle sharing space with me because they lack the ability to see other people in close proximity to them stand in and own their own light, their own power, and their own influence. I didn't recognize that me stepping away from doing something that I love and that felt authentic to me, and that has been a part of my growing brand for nearly the last 14 years, was me choosing to repress myself. So that's what we're going to explore in today's episode. Stepping out of self-repression. And for the first time in a long time, in those moments, I didn't realize I was holding myself back. Self-repression was so ingrained in me, so ingrained for me to filter who I was, that it felt normal. It was just how I had to exist in the world. That's what it felt like. But slowly, piece by piece, I started to see that this wasn't me being true to myself. It was me choosing to not fully live. It was me choosing to survive in a world that thrived off of me being a fraction of myself. And it was exhausting. I have spent so much of my life shrinking. I can recall a time when I was in grade school and I would forcefully attempt to change how I showed up in the world because I wanted to feel liked, and accepted. As I grew older, this showed up as me silently holding back parts of myself that I feared might make other people uncomfortable. I wasn't always aware of it, but looking back on those moments, it felt like years of me dumbing myself down, toning myself down, and very carefully curating how I showed up to avoid standing out or avoid pissing people off. It was like I was living in an invisible or with an invisible weight, just constantly worrying about what other people thought, whether I was too much or, um, you know, too much for them to handle. And since a very young age, I've always known that there was so much more to me, so much more to my opinions, more to my depth, more to express. Um, but I've always been very intentional about keeping that under wraps. Why? Because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be liked and understood and make sure I wasn't the cause of someone else's discomfort. I thought that if I was quiet, agreeable, and not too much, I would be accepted. And it took me years to realize that in doing so, it was me choosing to reject myself. The reality is I've been repressing who I am for far too long. And even in adulthood, presently, there are still moments when I thought that I had overcome all of this. And I still find myself in pits of reluctance or hesitancy because someone else has projected their insecurities onto me. And it's caused me to question if I am doing too much. This way of living and thinking held me back a lot in the past. I had to accept how I wasn't fully living or speaking up when I needed to, and refusing to embrace the parts of me that are bold, loud, and unapologetic. And sometimes these things, truthfully and honestly, sometimes these things exist and show up even without me saying a word. I was always worried about being labeled as complex or intimidating or even the villain in someone else's story. But now I understand that my journey isn't about being liked. It's about being true to myself. And I am very comfortable in being the villain in a lot of people's stories at this point in my life. Stepping out of self-repression has been one of the most freeing experiences of my life. But if I can be real, it has not been easy. It's been messy, it's been uncomfortable, and I've had to confront parts of myself that I had buried within for so many years. The hardest part wasn't even admitting that I had been repressing who I truly am. It was giving myself permission to stop dimming my light, to stop caring so much about what other people thought and start living for me. There's this constant pressure to perform, to fit neatly into the roles society has set for us, especially with social media these days. For a long time, like I did and was doing exactly that. I convinced myself that if I was agreeable, if I was easygoing, and if I was less, I would be liked and accepted. But acceptance at the expense of your own authenticity isn't really acceptance at all, is it? One day, I asked myself a question that changed everything for me. Whose life am I living? And that truth hit me. It hit me like a ton of bricks because I was living for everyone but myself. I was navigating relationships, career moves, and even daily decisions through the lens of will they approve instead of is this what I want? Once I had this realization, everything started to shift. I began to make small, intentional choices to show up as myself. And I began speaking more and allowing myself to be me, allowing my real thoughts and opinions to come through without censoring them. I started dressing for myself, not for what others might find acceptable or appealing. I allowed myself to be loud and to be bold and present in spaces that I used to shrink away from. I want to lean into a little bit what empowered me to break free. And one of the things that truly empowered me to step out of self-repression was understanding the value of my voice and my presence. In my current role, it'll be 3 years in November. And there was 1 week, no joke, 1 week of consistent meetings. Some of these meetings I had been a part of for the first time, but I was stepping into meetings and I would come off mute, come off camera, or get on camera, and I would be introducing myself and talking, and I would be getting comments on the side like, oh, hey, I'm so happy to connect with you and so happy that you're a part of this meeting. I've heard so much about you. Or, oh, hey, you were mentioned in a previous meeting. I've been hearing a lot about you. Like, I'm so excited to connect. Let's chat offline. Like those type of experience. And it was like for 1 week straight. And that's what made me realize, like, wait a minute, what you're doing is actually changing something within this company. People value your thoughts. People value your creativity. People value the way that you show up. People value the way you respond to them, the way you listen to them, the way that you think, the way that you act. People value that and they want to connect with you. They want to be in your presence. They want to be around you. More importantly, they want to work with you. That helped me realize that my choice to play small was me depriving the world of the fullness of who I am. And worse, I was depriving myself. This revelation came slowly, but I couldn't ignore it once I let it in. It's really hard to pinpoint the exact thing that sparked this shift. But what I think it was a combination of maturity and self-awareness. I realized that I had nothing to lose by being myself, but I had every single thing to gain. Each time I allowed myself to step out of the box I had put myself in, I felt lighter. I felt more free. I felt more alive. One of the most empowering realizations was this: everyone is not going to like me, and that is okay. The need to be liked, to avoid discomfort, had been such a driving force in my life for so long, and I got so sick of it. But it was the more that I leaned into my truth, the more that I realized that my happiness was never going to be found in other people's approval. It had to come from me. And it is a very powerful feeling when you stop living for others and you start living for yourself. That just sounds so cliche, but it is so true. You no longer need that external validation to feel whole, to feel like yourself, to feel empowered, to feel powerful, like you have a voice, like you stand for something in this world. It is just you vibing, operating, thriving off of you. As women, I believe that this is something that we desperately need to practice more often. We are so conditioned to be agreeable, to be nurturing, and to be accommodating, traits that are beautiful, by the way, but beautiful in the right context, and can be very dangerous to us and our well-being when they cause us to diminish ourselves. And here is why it is important for women and for the world to not be repressed. Women primarily have been taught to shrink. We have been taught to make ourselves small, to fit into a world that wasn't designed for us to take up space. We've been told directly or indirectly every moment of our existence in this world that our opinions are too much, our ambitions are too aggressive, our emotions are too overwhelming, the way we dress is too much, and so we repress. We hold ourselves back. We mold ourselves into what society expects us to be. We mold ourselves into what our friends, our partners, our parents, what all of these people expect us to be, instead of embracing the fullness of who we are. When I was a little girl, and I told this story before, and I love telling this story because it is just a radical reminder of how one thing can shift the way you see yourself. I've always been this very bold and eclectic child from birth. That was just me. And I remember wearing this dress. If I'm not mistaken, it was like corduroy, it was green, and then it was almost like a overalls, but it was a dress. And then I wore this like colorful shirt under it, and then I had on these like sparkly, colorful shoes. And I was going out, I was with my parents. And I think my hair was like in two pigtails, but I was feeling myself. Like I had put this look together. I felt really good about it. Um, and I remember going out and this woman like openly talking about me, a grown ass woman. And I was like 5 or 6, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I was really, really young. And this woman was making fun of me. And it was little moments like that. That moment was just like, oh, wait, am I supposed to do this? Am I okay? Like, is this okay? Is this normal? And then growing up and then going to stores and my mom telling, pick out what you like, and me picking out the floral capri pants, the clogs, the leather jackets, and going to school and kids being like, oh no, like the girls being like, mm-mm, no, but not realizing that this was me expressing myself. Clothing, my accessories, how I accessorize. This was always a way, a form of self-expression for me. And so to have that frowned upon growing up, it always made me feel like it wasn't enough to be liked. It wasn't enough to be accepted. Me never really realizing, like, they just don't accept you, and that is okay. This is a part of who you are. And so when we mold ourselves into these expectations, we're not embracing the fullness of who we are. And what happens when we do that? We start to lose ourselves. I don't even remember the age that it happened, but I lost myself. And it's taken a hell of a long time for me to get back to who I am. When we lose ourselves, we start to accept less from life and from ourselves and from the world around us. And when we accept less, whether we want to admit it or not, everything around us suffers for it. The world suffers for it because we are accepting piss poor. We are accepting less, and we are angry at the world, and we are making everybody suffer because internally we are suffering ourselves, and we don't know how to vocalize that. So it is important for us as women to step out of self-repression, because when we do, we give permission to others, we give permission to ourselves to do exactly what we need to do to show up and be ourselves. When you are a full expression of who you are, you give permission to others to do the same. Every time that I have shown up as my full authentic self, flaws, opinions, and all, like I've watched as the women around me have begun to do the same, who feel comfortable with like, oh, okay, she said, I'm going to do that too. It's a ripple effect. When one of us steps out of the shadows and takes up space, it inspires us all to follow suit. The world needs more women who are unapologetically themselves. It's not just about seeing those unapologetic women show up and take up space and watching that and admiring that. It's more than that. It's watching that and going out into the world and exemplifying what that means to you. We have so much to offer: our thoughts, our voices, our creativity. But when we keep repressing those parts of ourselves, we not only rob ourselves of the joy that comes from being authentic, but we also rob the world of our gifts. When women step into their power fully, without hesitation, we become forces of change. We inspire others to rise and live bolder and more authentic lives. We dismantle the idea that we have to fit in predefined roles, that we have to be less to be worthy. If you're feeling like you've been holding yourself back, you probably are. And I encourage you to ask yourself the same question that I had to ask myself a million times in order to slap myself back into reality. Whose life am I living? The answers might surprise you. The answers may overwhelm you. And if it does, that's the first step toward freeing yourself. Little by little, you begin to realize that your need for external approval and to fully step into the person you always are, there's no need for the approval. You are the approval. You showing up and being the person that you were always meant to be is the approval. You are the standard. You are the it girl. It's going to be liberating, but it's also going to be terrifying. But it is also absolutely necessary. This is why I have my platform. This is why my website exists. This is why I've been building up into this moment. This is why I never stopped blogging. This is why I never stopped showing up on social media. I have maybe taken moments and questioned myself, but this is why that I am unapologetic about doing and being exactly who I am. This is why my business, Divine Oasis, exists. Everything that I do holds a deep significance for me because everything that I create and that I do embodies everything that I believe in, intentional living and authenticity. At the core of everything that I do, it's about helping other women step into their authentic power. If you don't know, if you haven't been listening, I know firsthand what it feels like to live in the back, to live in the shadows, to be self-repressed, to play small, and to dull your light in order to fit in or to meet the expectations that aren't truly your own. It's a difficult space to exist in. It's hard. It's one that robs you of everything that brings you joy and keeps you from living a life that is intentional, a life that is rewarding, a life that is fulfilling, a life that just feels full. That's why I'm so passionate about creating a space where women can rediscover and reclaim themselves. It's not about striving for perfection because that's never the goal and has never been. It's about being real, about owning the parts of who you are, the messy, the beautiful, the imperfect, and everything in between without an apology. Through my brand, through my platform, through Divine Oasis, all I've ever wanted to do was inspire women to take up space and do so without regret, to show up in the fullness of their truth and to live life on their own terms. My work, everything that I do is about encouraging women to make decisions based on what feels right for them, not what other people expect. I believe in empowering women to be bold in their choices, to find their own voices, and to do so and live authentically, even when it's challenging the status quo, because that is exactly what we need. My platform, my website, Divine Oasis, everything that I stand for, it is more than a brand. It's a movement. It's a movement that embraces the beauty of intentional living and the strength that comes with just truly knowing and loving yourself. And hopefully everybody sees that it's an ongoing journey. I am very transparent throughout my work. I ain't feeling it today. I've regressed in my healing. I've had a moment of self-doubt, but I'm back. What's up? So before we close out, I want to share a few practical ways to start stepping out of self-repression. The first step is advocating for yourself, having a voice, not being afraid to speak up for yourself. This at times means starting small, and that is okay. But a lot of the times where we are repressed, where that repression begins, is with the people that are close to us, in our homes, in our family. It was when I stopped being afraid to speak up for myself in the environments that started the repression that really sent me on this wave of like, my throat chakra ain't blocked. Who do I got to tell off today? Who do I got to say no to? Who do I got to remind that I exist on my own, and your opinions, your thoughts, your need for me to help you feel secure by agreeing with you, that is not a part of me anymore. So who do I need to remind that I stand for myself and I stand on my own and I can advocate for myself and I can tell you hell no at any given moment? Or I can remind you that I'm an adult and I have my own opinions. I share my own thoughts and my own expressions with myself, and I can hang up on you because we're not in agreement. Who do I need to remind that today? How do I advocate for myself? How do you share thoughts in spaces where you feel safe? Or how do you force people or remind, I won't say force because that sounds very aggressive, but how do you remind people that in order for me to share my thoughts in these spaces, I need to feel safe? Or how do you create your own spaces? How do you create your own spaces where you share thoughts and the people that you share space with allow you to feel safe? And how do you continue to expand that circle? How do you continue to practice expressing your true feelings, even when it feels uncomfortable? Your first step to stepping out of self-repression is learning to advocate for yourself. That second step is embracing the discomfort. Growth is going to sound cliche, but happens outside of our comfort zones. Allow yourself to be uncomfortable. Allow yourself to feel the discomfort that comes with being more visible and outspoken. This is where your power lies. This is where you shine. I've had to remind myself this over and over and over again. But I am okay with being discomfort. The world needs to see me. How do I create change? How do I spark change if I'm in the shadows? How am I heard? How am I advocating and speaking up for myself and empowering others to do the same if I am uncomfortable with being heard and being seen? The discomfort is where you shine. That is where your power lies. Get comfortable with the discomfort. 3, surrounding yourself with people that fully support you. I can't say this enough, but when you start to step into the version of yourself that doesn't require you to play small, there are going to be a lot of people that embrace that. And then there are going to be people that are triggered by that. There are going to be a lot of people that can't stand that shit. And they can't stand it because they've been able to benefit from the version of you that has played small all of these years. So it's going to be important for you to surround yourself and seek out communities and relationships that can encourage you to be your full self. Because having those people around, the people who celebrate you and your authenticity, is going to make this journey feel less isolating. It is going to help you continue to push forward and step into your light and step into your power. If you continue to surround yourself with the people who benefited from the old version of you, the moment you feel comfortable in doing something, stepping outside of your comfort zone, they are going to attempt to remind you of who you are or who you used to be. Oh, I don't remember you doing that. That's not who you are. Like, why are you doing that? I'm just saying, you doing that, and I was already doing that. It doesn't feel right. I just feel like, no, 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 no. Meanwhile, when you surround yourself with community and relationships and people that support you, they are going to champion you. They are going to see you in your light, and they are going to see you shining, and they're going to be like, sis, I see you and I'm inspired. I'm empowered. Please keep doing what you're doing because it is helping me. Those are the types of people that you want to be around. The last thing that I want you to practice and be intentional about as you're stepping out of self-repression is reclaiming your time and your energy. Start prioritizing your needs and your desires over what others expect of you. Reevaluate where you're investing your energy. and reclaim that for yourself. This life, this world that we live in does not thrive if you are the least powerful version of yourself. You do not thrive. You do not know what happiness is when you spend your days and you spend your time and all of your energy pouring into other people, making sure they feel empowered, making sure they feel good about themselves. Because what are you giving to you? There is nothing that I put out into the world. There is nothing that I do not do before that I don't give to others before I give to myself. Everything that I do, everything that I stand on, everything that I'm able to do and stand on is because I practice this for myself. It is an absolute reflection of who I am and how I live. Stepping into your authentic self is a journey, but I believe that every woman has the power to live boldly and to do so without compromise. This is your reminder to stop compromising and do so without an apology, and do so as loud as you absolutely can. I want to thank you all for tuning into today's episode. I hope that the conversation today encourages you, has sparked something within you that empowers you to be the highest version of yourself. And you're going to have to excuse me, but I hope that this episode empowers you to stop giving a fuck about who or what may be intimidated by the way that you show up into the world. You deserve to be your full self forever and always, no matter who it makes uncomfortable. Remember to like this episode, to subscribe, leave a comment. If this episode resonated with you, please let me know. Let's talk about it. Let's have conversations. As always, I am here to support you on this journey of living more intentionally. Until next time, I want you to take care of yourselves. I want you to live more boldly, more freely. And I hope that you join me on the next episode where we'll continue exploring ways to live more divinely.